Hi, this is Philip Creager back again. This is the last batch of poems I intend to be reading. It's selections from the book Fragrance, which is not in actual book form. So this first one I'm going to read is called Amusing Stories, and it has a double meaning. Amuse sings stories. So several of these poems I'm reading today are best read as opposed to being heard, I believe. But I'll leave that evaluation up to the listeners. And a number of these I'm reading today have the same meter, the same cadence. Amuse sings stories. Amuse sings stories from on high. The lover listens, then let's fly with this becoming lullaby. Rockabye dreamer, head in the sky. Let this hymn knock you, don't question why. Let this song sock you in your third eye. Let this rhyme rock you, that you might die. Let the blood flow out, don't even cry. Let his tune play out without a sigh. Let his word ring out, so you'll reply, Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. That's all she wrote, says my pen dipped in blood. You hear foghorn's note, then fight through the crud, to land in his boat or be lost in the flood. So, about the word lullaby, Baba said, in the spiritual realm, I'm paraphrasing now, a lullaby can be as important as a lecture. So in this poem, there's sort of it starts out, I need that, but I have this. So it goes back and forth like so. And the first part of that, these two parts, is capitalized, like that is capital T, this is a small t. I think you'll see. Dying for your love. I need that, but I have this. I need you, but I have me. I fall flat and miss your kiss. I fall through and see not thee. What to do when all's been done? What to say when all's been said? What is here must come undone. What is there must wed the dead. Yet I cling to shadows' dance. Yet I hope to have my way. Yet you've come to lance this trance. Yet you've come to slay your prey. Yes, your all full sword is out. Yes, your fright fulfills half gone. Yes, I do not doubt your clout. Yes, I do not long the dawn. There's some double entendres in this poem again that you really have to read to get the full flavor. C'est la vie. This is called Sealed with a Kiss. Now some notes to the poem. The seal of the prophet of Avatar Muhammad was a mole on his back. Eretz used to tell the story about one of his lovers who concocted a clever ruse in order to kiss the seal, to kiss the mole of the prophet. It's a known story. I don't recall it all that accurately, so I won't attempt it, but I will read the poem. A poet's dole must fill the hole that's left from living and take the role that living stole from God's eternal giving. A dead man's heart can thus restart and right his life's misgiving, which wronged his soul and took its toll through mind's self-serving diddling. How fortunate the willing slave who turns from master kidding to kiss the mole and join the scroll of those who do his bidding. This next one is not a poem, departing a little bit. It's a prose piece, which I wrote when I went back to college to get a master's degree in librarianship in my middle age. I think I was 44 when I began the program. It's called A Tale of Two Spiders. As I sat amongst my fellow graduate students, furiously taking notes on a subject with little relevance to anything, I chanced to ponder, if this is an intelligent group, then why is everyone swallowing this crap with nary a glimmer of protest or complaint? It didn't take long to discover the answer. A quick scanning of the lecture hall made me realize that today's best and brightest would literally ingest anything if habituated to doing so, regardless of their, quote, intelligence. This was amply illustrated by the junk food and junk drinks littering the desktops. Not an apple, orange juice, bag of peanuts, or other healthy food item of any kind was to be found or eaten. Anyhow, it was at this juncture that a wholesome morsel of understanding quite suddenly nourished my being with this insight. Intelligence does not equal consciousness. Consciousness is greater than intelligence. Eureka! I exclaimed inwardly, just as our professor, with equal suddenness, burst out with a primitive shriek. It so happened that the discovery of a tiny, harmless spider on the chalkboard was the cause of her displeasure. Getting the message, said spider was only too eager to get out of harm's way. But harm's way was exactly what our teacher had in mind as she attempted to brain the brainless arachnid with a tool of the trade, the chalkboard eraser. Failing in her endeavor to teach the spider a lesson, a classmate garbed in a Desert Storm sweatshirt raced to the rescue and pounded the hapless creature into Never Never Land with a shoe and a smile. It was several weeks later, while vacationing at a lovely, simple wooded retreat, guess where that was, that I met a family of 3 who presented an altogether different picture than the one exhibited by my more learned brethren. Just outside their cabin entrance, a magnificent-looking spider had created an extraordinarily spectacular web in which to catch flies, gnats, mosquitoes, and so on. Unfortunately, this silken lair was positioned in such a way that the cabin door could only be partially opened without dismantling it. Add to this the mother's professed unease around spiders, and it is easy to envision an outcome reminiscent of the aforementioned classroom scene. But this family group viewed the situation quite differently. In fact, they went so far as to very carefully slip in and out of a partly open doorway for their entire week-long stay, and they not only marveled at the spider's handiwork and appreciated its existence, but they also came to enjoy the little effort it took to avoid causing it any disturbance. Now, the moral of this story is not so much avoid killing spiders under all circumstances. No, there is more a recounting of how, despite the impressive growth of our intellects, we can remain slavishly trapped in the stagnant web of our unthinking ways, or we can consciously choose to commence interweaving a large, rich tapestry of new lives for ourselves. ones in which our hearts and minds create a masterful network of life-supporting love and kindness, wherein we can begin to successfully erase yesterday's unconscious follies with tomorrow's promise today. Okay, this next one is an old poem called Seasoned. I call it a lookout poem from the Garden of Weedon, not Eden, as in weeding weeds. And it's a lookout poem in a double sense. I wrote it while I was staying in the lookout cabin at the Mayher Center in Myrtle Beach. And I forget if I mentioned this, but it had to do with an old relationship. I gave you 20 chances, but you took 21. And after being taken, you saw that I was done. So from your seedy plotting, you reaped a weedy haul and left this summer valley you'd ripened for the fall. Now winter's almost over. I've braved the icy form that followed when foul weather took paradise by storm. And seasons clock-like turning will positively bring to one who weathers burning a second chance for spring. The rotting weeds and water shall fertilize this land, so wind-borne seeds and sunshine might flourish here as planned. It's nature's way of taking the ruins from this plot and gently recreating a natural beauty spot. That's how the nightmare victim, so far from dreamed of heights, can see through true revision the garden of delights. And this time, from experience, I'll leave that plot alone and seek only the giver from whom all seeds are sown. There are a series of 8, I think it was, short poems that I wrote, some of which are in the ghazal format. But I'm not so thrilled with them. I think there might be some more work that needs to be done. So I don't think I'll read them. Let me look through them briefly here. One of them has some nice graphics. I'm not an artist, but they came out well. Maybe I'll read one or two of them. This one's called After the Parting, Awareness 1, 2, 3. It's in 3 short parts. And there are notes at the end. 1, after the parting, rain and wind tore through the night, while motionless, expressionless, but with open eyes stood he who took the part. 2, before the starting, haze of light returned amidst storm's abatement, and he with open eyes took the start. 3, then when the heart sings, dreams of fall and rise, of heaven and hell, he with open eyes no longer takes to heart. So it's a sequence of states of being. And the notes to the poem are a little verse that Balna II thought up. It's kind of a poetic aphorism as to when things happen. What happens, when, that happens, then. He had a way of coming up with these cute little short sayings. Up and down, all around in Mayher Town. I forget how it went. Was another one. This is called He Who Laughs Last. Do I have any notes to it? No notes to it. It's funny how the constant thought of money now means one has bought a sacred cow whose milk is naught. It's paper thin compared to one who looks within to find the sun and kills the sin of greed-based fun. This ends the gaff for he who slays the golden calf that ruled his days, for God's last laugh prevails always. I should have written some notes about the various things that Baba said, and some in a good way, about money. I do remember one of them pretty close to might be a paraphrasal. Baba said, in the gross world, every pi, every paisa, meaning every penny, counts. In the subtle world, every bit of energy counts. In the mental world, every thought counts. Okay, this one's a little complex, and it's a sister piece to a poem that I'm not reading here. The sister piece was called New World Order. This poem is called Ha Ha. A keynote to the poem, Ha Ha is an outgrowth of the prosem New World Order. It is in fact a poetic adaptation of New World Order, which starts out using the same language, so to speak, as its sister piece, but then takes on a different accent, that of neti neti, not this, not that, which is meant to rain on the parade of our sanskaras. We must, however, have the insight to allow that shower of grace to pour over and dissolve our illusory lives. In this endeavor, learning a second language, his language, holds the key. Now, I called it a prosem, which is a combination of a poem and prose piece. And Steve Klein also came up with the term. So my good friend Steve Klein and I are going to have to talk and see who came up with it first. Actually, probably lots of people have. So I'll read the poem and then some more notes about it. It's funny when when the notes are longer than the poem. Ha ha. And ha ha in Hindi, just to give a hint, more than a hint, means yes, yes. So neti neti, no, no, not this, not that, and ha ha, yes, yes. When impelling lower dwelling energy gains permission to condition love so free, lust within us then can spin us crazily. But the master waives disaster when he states, neti neti, like confetti, celebrates victory for one who reigns o'er gross mistakes. Solve this puzzle and you'll muzzle Maya's bite. For one conquers love gone bonkers through insight. In the meantime and between time, hold on tight. So more notes to neti neti. When the knowledge that ha ha means yes, yes in Baba's native language, this poem may no longer seem quite so laughable, though one might chuckle over the irony of how it is meant to encourage application of the poem's no, neti neti theme. To unwind any further mysteries in this poem come riddle, why not humor me and read the last 3 or 4 pages of Baba's discourse, The Removal of Sanskaras, Part 1. It details a masterful no approach toward fully realizing that, as Baba said, quote, life is a mighty joke. Sure, putting this method into practice may seem like a funny way to get the last laugh. You could die laughing, but wouldn't the beloved be tickled pink if we tried? See the title for the answer. And this one, okay, it's a little hard to read because of my scribbling script, and I'm sorry about that. But it has a companion piece which I think I'll read first. It's the nursery rhyme, basically, Humpty Dumpty. And you'll see the connection when I read the poem Falling Apart. Humpty Dumpty sat on the wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty Dumpty together again. And I add, until Humpty got on board with the royal exit strategy, allowing the king, his own fine self, to dump the hump and eventually reign supreme. Falling apart, can't get it all together, a dying art, not something I can weather, falling apart. Why am I still in motion, a bleeding heart? When will I join the ocean without false start? Now life remains in prison till I depart. Then Christ will have arisen, new living art. I had a poem that actually got lost. It was stolen out of a rickshaw. That also had a nursery rhyme connection. I think I called it Jack and Jill and played on that theme. Unfortunately, I don't remember it. Okay, this is called Nighttime. It has a sort of staccato, not staccato, anyway. I'll just read it. Here in nowhere, what to do? I don't know where to find you. I am dying for your kiss. I must die, then I can't miss what you offer all the time. Perfect love and peace sublime. As a lover without love, poison sweetness, that can be poison or poison, sweetness, stay above. Here below, I reach without, seeking out through painful shout. When at last I die within, then I'll go where you begin. Okay, this was written about a friend and neighbor, Baba Lover, who passed on a few years ago. It's called Tender in the Night. Maybe I'll read some of the notes first. I'll just say who it's about, because some people may have known her. Maureen Hurley. And I first met Maureen in Mansari's kitchen during her one pilgrimage to Baba in India. And we had a nice rapport. And then later, much later on, we became neighbors. And we were in contact with each other every couple of weeks. This poem came to me in 4 quatrains. It came to me unexpectedly on the evening of the day that Maureen passed on from this world into the next. The poem takes the form of a benediction, a missive of good wishes and love for her ongoing journey. I titled it Tender in the Night. I should mention that in this piece, the between lives state is referred to as night, since it is a time when one's eyes and other senses have closed to the physical world, and the soul then, generally speaking, begins experiencing things from a subtle vantage point. And one last heads up regarding my usage of the word tender. While as an adjective it can mean gentle and loving, when employed as a noun it can also mean both currency, like legal tender, and it can mean one who tends to us. Tender in the night. Oh, so tender night time render, sleep so deep you must surrender. In this tween state, God's your tender, and your past life's soul amender. Then, when lifetime trips your senses, active living recommences. Until then, in peace you take rest, tender soul whom God has much blessed. So this next poem is a poem which is probably best read, so one can grasp the double meanings. But I will give a little, I have a glossary to it. I'll mention some of these things. Some of the words are not in common usage or might not be understood until the poem is read. The word bower, if you look it up in the dictionary, means shelter or haven. To trawl for something, T-R-A-W-L, means to catch with a large net. Rescission means cancellation. Thrall, to become a slave to, enthralled with. Pall, P-A-L-L, a covering or veil. Sol, S-O-L, the sun, which also means God. There's a line in the poem, Helios amigos. Helios is a sun reference, and amigos can be me, goes. And the word nod can be N-O-D or nod, N-A-A-D. This was written, This poem was 9/11 inspired. And the poem came to me in early October, the 3rd of October, upon arising, with most of the coda a few days after that. And it was on October 13th, 2001, Erich's birthday, that the whole thing was completed. And what exactly is this whole thing really about, this poem? The lover practicing detachment to illusion and attachment to God, thereby addressing the whole myopic deal by inwardly asserting, never mind, have heart. Then the lover signs off, or signs on, with a hearty Helios amigos, here comes the Sun King, with a nod to the Beatles. So it's a poem that can be understood unless it's seen from the detachment standpoint and on another level that I won't mention. Anyway, it was a horrible event, as we all know, but I'll just read the poem. It's called Trading Up. As towers fall to plains and skies, which minds cannot envision, God showers all with grace that flies to hearts without division. Devourer's maul, M-A-U-L, has given rise to love through pain's incision. For towers fall to mind's surprise can bring hatred's rescission. Dark hours now sprawl, but no one dies who in one swift decision like flowers call with heartfelt cries for sunlight's mercy mission. In Bower's hall, sun clears the eyes of those with clouded vision. His powers trawl where heartache lies and expedite remission. It's ours to thrall to Maya's pall or put stock in revision. One cowers to crawl, or else to draw on God's light, your decision. And the coda is, fate glowers as Sol, S-O-L, most humbly plies his trade despite derision. A shower-spun ball in deft disguise, dispatching with concision. Light powers with all, a whole to Saul, completing Maya's schism. Then flowers grow tall, 1/4 in all, completing Maya's schism, above the cataclysm. I'll just give some hints about the book Avatar of the Age, Mayor Baba Manifesting, which Baba ordered Bao to write. It talks about destruction and a hole being cut in the first door. It talks about 3/4 of the world being destroyed. Anyway, those are some hints. And let's see. Okay, this is called attune. It can be attune, T-U-N-E, or attune, to attune oneself to, A-T-T-U-N-E. I'll read part of the brief notes before the poem, and then the second half of the brief notes after the poem. I mentioned, it's okay, the wordplay. The first line is a musical word, which can be a muse I call word, W-O-R-D. I already gave the wordplay on attune. There's the word a rose, or it can be a rose. Baba's explained that although they may be Baba's explained that although they may be gross conscious being, some poets' words and sense, S-C-E-N-T-S, come from subtle world inspiration. The word sense was not Baba's word, that was mine. Attune, a musical word that arose from beyond, brings the voice that is heard, which is naturally dawned in subtle bass sense, for the heart to breathe in when the ear is attuned to sweet silence within. So these are the rest of the notes to the poem Attune. Attuning one's self, a seemingly significant level of happiness and satisfaction is readily transferred to the reader/listener when a technically skilled writer merely strikes the right emotional and intellectual chords in his audience. In fact, it can be argued that much poetry is constructed, sometimes this is unconsciously, with a view toward these types of responses, not only in others, but in oneself. For the average poet delights in the arrival into his awareness of thought dreams, which are deemed by him suitable for configurement into poetic form. On an emotional high, he takes his cherished thought forms in hand and engages his learned literary ability to pull and tug, twist and tweak, smooth and polish the material. The result is his creation. It is considerably more rare and of a different order altogether to be able to simply bear witness to that which comes from a clear, or at least much more clear, uncolored, or at least much less colored place beyond the normal emotion mind parameters, and then to detachedly, yet fully cooperate in the untampered unveilment of this natural process into its meaningful poetic destiny. In turn, the listener will most likely find it necessary to attune or stretch to a different level than he might ordinarily be accustomed to doing if he is to take in a fuller measure of the vibratory issuances from this rarer type of poetry. Otherwise, he, she, will experience merely an interpretation, a reflection of his or her own preconditioned poetic sensibilities, instead of that which is encompassed within this kind of poetry. Notes to the poems such as these are intended to facilitate deeper levels of accessibility to some degree for some folks. Thank you, dear listener, for your consideration. I've given some thought to making that the opening poem of the book, Fragrance, but probably too much explanation. I don't know. Never mind. One last poem here. This is called Windswept. It had to do with a deep experience of Baba's presence that was initiated by, I'm struggling to say it, but let's see. This person named Carol, who was a very close friend of mine, she was even the backup executor of my will before she died, and she referred to me as her best friend, shared this experience together on Baba's center. And I had in my custody Baba Sadra for a few days. I was seeing to its being archivally cared for. But while I had it in my custody, and this might not be archivally correct, I draped the Sadra over my back and put me into a bliss state. And I wanted to share it with Carol, and the same thing happened with her. And in this kind of beautifully dazed state, we drove around the center. It was pre-dusk with these beautiful pink clouds and a beautiful breeze. And I remember on Baba's center, not everybody knows this, there is a dump, where they burn things and things that are no longer in use are in the dump sometimes. And as we drove by where the dump area is, I remember saying, "Look, it's Baba's dump." Even Baba's dump just seemed like a wonderful, blissful thing. So anyway, let's see, is it time to read it, or do I have something more to say? I'm going to read the preamble to the poem, then the poem, and then the notes. But I don't think this should be seen, this poem, as us having a spiritual experience in the woo-woo sense or anything like that. It was very natural. But in terms of woo-woo experiences, which can be beautiful and can be helpful, still they need to be put into perspective. I've mentioned this before, but not this particular quote. And I'm sorry, I forget if it's a quote from Rumi or Attar, but they were both perfect masters. And this quote you can find in Merazad. "To behold a single blemish in oneself has more value than to gaze upon the thousand lights within." It's a quote that Erich has just outside of his room on a little desktop. WINDSWEPT is the name of the poem. And this is the preamble. We are gently blown away by the breath of Baba's silent giving. An attempt to give voice to the pre-dusk car ramble of his grateful lovers on a new moon afternoon throughout the center, having been enfolded in the garment of his love and thereby able to be swept away, whichever way the wind blows. And this is the actual poem. Riding on a pink cloud, gliding through a blue sky, feeling Baba out loud, living on our heart's sigh. Everything is all right. Ne'er a thing can go wrong, as he gives us insight through his silent love song. How can beggars thank him for this banquet given, other than to praise him for this love we live in? Even when clouds cover our awareness levels, we can always hover just above the devils of our mind's deception when we just remember in our false depression that a glowing ember truly begs attention and responds whenever airborne love's ascension is our one endeavor. This way we can give up all we claim as ours so that we can live up to the breeze that flowers, capital B. Any time one dances on that fiery coal, stoked by his love glances, blowing in one's soul. And some people might pick up on the imagery which is reminiscent of Cole Porter's, Begin the Beguine. There was another thing I wanted to say, if I can remember. Oh, for this banquet given. I remember once I was in Mandalay Hall, and Erich had a way of being able to pick up on what people were feeling oftentimes. And just out of nowhere, as I was sitting on the other end of the hall, he says, and I was in a beautiful state of feeling Baba. He said, Philip, they don't know what it is. It's the banquet time, the time we live in, where you can really make hay when the sun shines. It was a very touching moment. Okay, I'll just read part of the notes here. So after I wrote this poem, a few days later I felt drawn to seek out Begin the Beguine by Cole Porter. I was surprised to discover significantly similar imagery and wordplay between his composition and mine. Examples: coal, as in C-O-A-L, or ember, Cole Porter. Ember and ember in both poems, clouds and cloud in the poems. And I realized that this, as Baba called it, mystical love poem, could add to the reader's enjoyment of Windswept. Yet, however deep the enjoyment, the question remains, can the mind really recapture the actual experience itself? To live it again is past all endeavor. How can one catch the wind? One cannot. Ah, but then Porter sublimely rejoins, except when that tune clutches my heart. For when that happens, the wind catches us, and once more we are magically swept away. Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai.